Hollis is from Washington, says he's deconstructing, but stuck on the gods not reconciling the fall of the angels and putting his house in order. So this is an interesting topic. Hollis, can you kind of fill out what you're processing here for us?
Yes, I'm curious to know. I don't know if it's a theory or not, but I'm wondering why God does not reconcile with the fallen angel from heaven. I understand that the reason why he fell was because he wanted to be like God. And so I'm thinking that God said, okay, you want to play God, here's your chance, and put him down here on earth and created us so that he could play God, so that Satan or the fallen angel could realize and reconcile with God and take his place back in heaven. I'm wondering if there's any other religions that have any fallen angels from paradise or heaven.
Oh, yeah. This is an old theme. We see the same thing in Greek mythology, but the older mythology comes from Mesopotamia. Like the popular theory on like the History Channel was that it's like the Anunnaki. That's not true. In like ancient Mesopotamia, the divine beings that came down and gave like secret information to mankind and sort of disobeyed the other gods, they're referred to as the Apkallu. And then we find some remnants of this narrative in the Book of Enoch. But it's a very popular narrative. You'll find this particular narrative in all of the ancient Near Eastern religions, some of the Mediterranean religions as well. It's just very popular. It's one of those archetypal themes. Much like think of like the Disney movies. A lot of the classic Disney movies is like waiting for your prince to come. This is kind of one of those archetypal themes that just seems to exist. There's a god or some gods or some divine beings that disobey these gods here and then come down to humanity and either corrupt them or help them or some combination of both. It's very ancient. It's been around for a long time. But to answer your question, the reason why it shows up in the Bible is because specifically in Genesis, they were riffing on ancient Babylonian ideas. The tower narrative comes from ancient Sumer. They have a narrative about a mound being built, brothers warring with each other or being at war with each other, like Cain and Abel or Jacob and Esau. That is right out of Egyptian mythology. In fact, it's one of the great disputations. As well, like farmer versus shepherd. That's why we find that echoed in the Cain versus Abel narrative. There were 7 great disputations in ancient Mesopotamia. One of them was the farmer versus shepherd, which one is actually greater for society. So when we read like these narratives of like the fallen angels and whatnot, it's just the biblical creators trying to take these common motifs that everybody already accepts and put their spin on it using their God. Does that make sense?
Yes, yeah, it does. But I listened to your program and several other programs, and this topic has really never been addressed as far as I recall. And I'm just kind of really stuck in. I understand that the Christian point of view of us being sinners and we need to reconcile with God, but it seems to me like we're just kind of anecdotal to what is going on in reality.
Yeah. So here's kind of the fun stuff with the topic material that you've called in with, which is like it's not an accepted thing within biblical academia that like Satan was necessarily a fallen angel. Like we get this mythology from Isaiah 14 and Ezekiel 28, but by and large, academics understand that this is not actually about Satan. The Satan mythology was tacked onto it hundreds and hundreds of years after Isaiah ever lived. So the narrative that Satan was a fallen angel isn't really in the Bible. And even Jesus says in John that Satan was a liar and murderer from the beginning, which means there was never a point where Satan was like a good guy and then he fell. That's not really original to the biblical narrative. These are ideas that developed much later. So trying to find a solution to why God didn't handle the fall of Satan differently, I think is already starting on the wrong foot, because it's not really a biblical concept. That's just something that got popularized within Christianity. I'm not sure if we need to develop talking points against it just to point out how silly it is that God would create his own enemy.
Right. Wow. Yeah. Some other things that I read some of the Bible, and I think it was Paul who told, I believe it was maybe Timothy, to present yourself worthy to correctly divine the word of truth. Am I mistaken?
I mean, I don't have that specific reference on hand. I'm willing to trust that it came from Timothy. Paul had a lot of stock phrases like that, though.
Oh, okay, yeah. And so I find in the Bible there are some truths, but for the most part of it, it's pretty much all garbage. But I'm just really stuck. I'm kind of stuck in this rabbit hole of what God's purpose is.
That's a great question.
Reconciling with the fallen angels and us, not reconciling, but I guess other word escapes me right now.
Hollis, you've probably heard me bring up this topic before. Jude and 2 Peter state that those fallen angels from Genesis 6, the ones that slept with the women, have been locked up in chains and darkness awaiting the judgment, right? Which you would logically think, well, if Satan was one of those fallen angels, he should be locked up with them. The reality is Satan wasn't one of those fallen angels. So you can't treat Satan in the same vein as the fallen angels. The fallen angels have been locked up. They have been dealt with, which is why I think it's a mistake to include Satan with those angels, because that would mean that Satan would be locked up, but he's not locked up, right? So Satan is not one of the fallen angels. He's, at best, he's like God's henchman. He does God's dirty work. You know what I mean?
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, then is it the Michael the Archangel that fell from grace?
Oh, no, not Michael. Michael shows up in specifically in the book of Daniel as a great hero. In fact, I think the Messiah that shows up in the book of Daniel, or whoever inherits the kingdom in Daniel 7, I think that is Michael the Archangel. That's why he shows up at the end of the book of Daniel as being the rescuer of God's people before the end. But that's a whole different conversation. But Hollis, we appreciate you calling in. We do have some time limits. I want to get to our next caller, but it was great to hear from you. And this is a deeply interesting topic. I would recommend on the Genesis chapter 6 topic, get the commentary by Klaus Westermann in the Continental Commentary series. He goes into this topic a bit. It's a really good topic, and I don't think you'll regret purchasing that commentary.
Okay, great. I appreciate your input. And thank you very much.
Sure thing.
I really appreciate the call.
Absolutely. Have a great one, friend.
You bet. Bye.
Mike, do you remember where your headspace was the first time you heard about Genesis 6 and the angels sleeping with humans and creating a race of giants?
It was probably after I left religion, but yeah.